Pole rigs, something that should not be dreaded, and most people I think it's a complicated process and quite fiddly, but I think the most important thing is to get organised, get set up first, because if you're not organised, comfortable, and you've got the right little bits of kit that you need, then it can be quite difficult. So a few little things that I particularly like to use when I'm tying rigs, I'm just going to walk you through. First thing is a good pair of them, because if your eyes have gone, make sure you can see what you're looking at, because if you can't, you've got absolutely no chance. So I like those. A couple of other things that I like is some people prefer a nice short pair of scissors, like so. I actually like nail clippers because I find them that I can get closer to the knots that I'm cutting off, and if you're a shop man, then a nice pair of shop pliers or some implement that you need to squeeze your weights on with. Now that will depend on whether you're a shot or a stop man, and ultimately stocks are easy to use, but good shots I think sit nicer and they don't slide as much. So the choice is yours, and everybody's got their own opinion. And you need to get yourself a nice comfy area where it's nice and clean, plenty of space, and where you can kind of work and give yourself some room. So fundamentals, important things. Oh, I like a big weight as well, which I'll explain in a minute. And you need to set your stall out, decide what it is that you're trying to achieve, and match all your tackle accordingly. So floats, for instance, if you're looking at margin floats, which is the ones I'm tying up at the minute, then you need to match your line with your rig, and depending on what your target species. So for this particular one, I'm using some 0181, which is just over the 018 mark, and that's 6'6" in breaking strain. And I'm tying that to a Fury, which is 2.5mm bristle with a fiberglass stem. So I got prepared first, and I've cut some, get yourself some nice good silicone. This is 0.7 to match the stem, and before you get started, it's always important to match up your silicone. So before trying to make up a rig, best thing to do is make sure you've got your glasses on properly, unlike me, and just try the silicone onto the stem and make sure you've got a nice tight fit so it doesn't pull off when you're fishing. Always factor in that if you're using thick line, that will take up the slack in the gap and make sure that your silicone becomes a little bit tighter. So don't have it too tight, but if it is just a little bit too slack, then remember something like an 018 line will make a big difference. If you're using something like an 016 or even an 020, if you're going margin hunting, then just adjust that accordingly. But that's a 0.7 with this fiberglass stem. I've just threaded that on because I was just starting to make some rigs, but I thought we'd talk to you about what we were doing, and I've threaded that through. That's an inline body, so straight through the eye first, then through the body onto the silicone, and I've cut myself pre-cut 3 lengths of silicone. So the 2 that are further up are slightly shorter than the bottom one, because I actually like a longer piece right at the bottom of the float, and that just for me prevents a few tangles. So when I've threaded that up and I've got it all nice and neat on my thing, I then take the weight, which is an old doorstop, that weighs about £2. It's got a rubber bottom on it, and that sits on the top of my spool and just stops it moving, which allows me to keep my line tight when I'm putting shots on. Depending on whether you're a stot or a shot man, then that is entirely up to you. I feel that, as I mentioned, the shots don't slide as much, whereas the stots do, which is an advantage if you want to move your weights. But if you don't want to move your weights, then I could probably say that a normal round split shot would be a lot better. I'm convinced these used to be easier to put on, but don't do that at home because that's not ideal. But a number 8 stot will just slide on, and what I tend to do is I find that if I get myself a few of a float, I can shot up one of them in like a little jar of water, and then work out exactly what that float takes. And rather than then shotting every single float separately and having to put them in the water, you can actually just replicate the shotting pattern. So for instance, I'm just going to put these on with a pair of pliers to show you what you should do, and just squeeze them on nice and steady. The beauty about stots is they will slide, and you can then find, for instance, because these particular floats are very accurate and every single float takes the same shotting capacity, it means that once you've found out that this particular float, which is a 414's Fury, will take for instance, I can't remember, but it's 4 or 5 number 8s, then you can just shot up all your other floats exactly the same. And depending on what shotting pattern you're using, means that you can just put number 10s on and you'll work it out for yourself. And basically it's dead simple. Apply your shots. If you want to slide them, all well and good. If you also want to preset your shotting pattern, then you can lay it out. I've got a few marks on my table which go from 0 to 600 mil, because very rarely will I spread my shots any further than that. And then I could just tie it off with a loop tire. You can tie it freehand if you'd like to. I don't mind. I use a figure of 8 knot if I'm tying it by hand. So I'll just show you that. For instance, you can just tie a nice little loop in the end, which I like to do. Wrap it around the back, through the centre, so it's almost like a normal overhand loop, and then you can just slide it down and keep yourself a nice neat loop, which is as small as you need to be, in my opinion. Some people like micro loops. Personally, I don't think they lay as well in the water, and when you loop to loop in, they don't fit as well. And I use those nail clippers to get right close to the loop, and it keeps it all nice and trim. And then just preset. So for instance, I know that I'm only going to be margin fishing, so I'm actually using my outstretched arms as a rough guide. I don't have an exact measure, and then I'll just do the same figure of 8 loop on the top, tie that off, knowing for a fact I'll do that a little bit bigger because that's going around the back of my connector. I don't mind it being so big. Up on the termination end, because ordinarily there's a chance that I'm actually going to be adjusting the length of that. And it's dead simple. I don't try and set the depth. I don't try and get things super perfect, because I don't know what swim I'm going to draw. And then just apply it to a winder. Dead simple. Just get it to sit nice and wrap him up. And I always mark on the side of the winder exactly what diameter line it is. That's more important for me, because what I find that I do in particular is that I'll tie the length of my rig according to the size of the float. So there's no point in tying a 4x12 float to 3 metres of line or 6 metres of line, for instance, because that'll be too light. But a heavier float where I might be inclined to use it in deeper water, I'll probably do 1.5 of my outstretched arms, and that'll give me the right depth. And I'll just mark on the line diameter, which in this case is 181, and I know that when I go into my rig box, that will be strong enough to catch big carp and large fish, and will stand the test of time. Dead simple. Don't be frightened of it.